Good morning and welcome back, ladies, gents and Pikachus, to another analysis and breakdown of the Quran of the Muslims. So once again we're going to be breaking this thing down verse by verse into factual logical terms in English so that we can understand who or what is Allah, what does he mean by the contents of his book here, and more importantly for us, how does this affect us as non-believers in our lives today. So I'm going to be carrying on with my comparison of God and Allah in their respective holy books in order that we can understand why Muslims are mistaken when they say Allah is God, and how we can see in the proof of the two beings' behaviours what they actually do in their works, how we can compare them and figure out they are not only separate beings but completely opposite characters in their behaviour. So with that in mind, let's carry on where we left off last time. Now, where we left off last time, we were going through the book of Genesis, in which God describes his creation, how he puts it together, and the mechanics of how it works, and more importantly, why it works that way, in relation to the life of man and woman upon the earth. He sets them an example to get up in the morning following the rising sun, working hard throughout the day to create something beneficial and useful for the people that they love, and then come home at night, put themselves to bed and rest throughout the night and wake up again in the morning. That was God's example. He didn't even have to command it directly. He gave us a behavioural example and said this is good. And through him saying this is good, we know if we do that, our works will also be good. That's how we know God is creative, intelligent, but he knows the limitations of man and woman. So we're going to look at marriage specifically now. We're going to look at how Allah depicts marriage in the Muslim world, and we're going to compare it to how we do marriage here in the West. So, what I would like to start is by drawing your attention to Genesis in the Holy Bible and how God creates man and woman equal. Now, we know this because it says in plain English terms in the book of Genesis, the book of Moses, man needed a helper upon the earth. So God had created fish, birds, beasts of burden, crawly things, cats, dogs, everything else, and there wasn't a sufficient helper among these beasts in order for man to have. And God recognised man being alone was not good, and so it would be good for him to have an equal helper. And that's why he creates the woman, not as a subordinate creature, not as property, certainly not as a slave. He specifically uses the words equal partners in marriage. So we know God doesn't want Eve to be a slave or a subordinate, not like an older child who has responsibility only in terms of a child. Eve is not only the equal of man, but sometimes even an opponent, to bring her own wits and intelligence to bear over the man to correct his course as he makes mistakes in his life. That is the role of the woman's help. He doesn't need help in any other way but that. And that is why women are endowed with a sense of justice and righteousness and indignation. When they see their man doing something wrong, they will grab him and they will say, "Excuse me, mister, that's not good." Exactly like the example God has given them. And that is why we know women are good at this, because they were made to do that. And that's why you only have one partner in marriage. A man plus a woman equals a marriage, and there are no other entries. So that's God and the Bible. So we move on to the Quran of the Muslims, and we find through the book of Al-Nisa somewhat of a different story. So Allah says to the Muslim man, "You shall marry whoever you like, and you can have 1, 2, 3 or 4 wives from the Islamic world, but you can also have an unlimited amount of concubines, sex slaves and prisoners." So we see straight away, Allah has no respect for women. He doesn't see women as equal to men. In fact, he sees women as property, and the only help that they can offer is procreating babies for the jihad and sex. That is all they are able to do. Not only that, he thinks that they need 4 Islamic wives in addition to an unlimited amount of concubines. And then we find at the book of Al-Nisa, he even says, and this is repeated in the Sharia portion, a woman's testimony is worth that of half of a man. So whereas in Genesis, God expressly says man and women are equal, everything they do and say is equal, even though they're different, they are working together in God's great plan, using their free will and their equal share in the marriage, Allah doesn't see things that way at all. And in fact, the man's share is worth double what the woman's share is. The woman has no power. And he actually says the words, men have a degree of power over a woman. So it doesn't even matter if you're in an argument with a man in an Islamic household and you're actually right, you're overruled because the man has a degree of power over you. And that's if he's even listening to your arguments at all, considering you are one of a group of wives who you are being seen after the concubines and the sex slaves. It's a wonder the Muslim man finds any time for his wife whatsoever. So with that in mind, I would like you to really think through what we have covered so far. God has shown he's creative, but not creating for the sake of his own arrogance. He's not creating to show off. He is being practical. He's created the earth as a home for humanity. He has created birds, fish, beasts of burden, the seas, the land masses. He's created clouds and a temperate atmosphere for comfort. He wants his creatures to be comfortable. And each thing that he creates, he looks down upon and notes that this is good. So he's not just randomly creating things. He's actually got a plan. And after he's created things, he notes, this is good. I'm going to keep it. It's perfect. And when man and women are finally created, they're created as equal partners in bond so that they can share the burden. That's what he describes this world as, a burden. They can share the burden of living in this lovely, bountiful world with free food and water, surrounded by beautiful nature. And the task he gives man with woman as his helper is a simple one. You must tend the walled garden and make sure the future of your children is secure. That is man's task upon the earth, and indeed woman's task. Now notice, man cannot complete his task without woman. It's impossible. How can you have a walled garden and tend it to ensure the future of your generations, your children, without a woman? And likewise, the woman is not able to have children and have the walled garden in which to have the safety of the children without a man. So not only does he say you are created equally, man and woman, the task I have given you equally requires you both to commit to it. And that is why man and woman are cleaved together as one being in marriage in the Holy Bible. They are vowed together in words, they are bonded together in spirit, and they are practically applying themselves in equal measure to the task that God has given them of furthering their own family through children in the safety of the walled garden, which is like the paradise garden, and the wall is to keep out the predators or the dangers outside. So God is letting you know his example can be followed, and in fact that is your task upon the earth. And we know from reading the earlier books of Genesis that his example was wake up early in the morning, do your creative works with your loved ones in mind, make something they can find useful, put love into your creation and make sure that it works and that they enjoy it. Then when you return home, you will be admired and adored by your family, who you will love in return. And at the end of the day, when you see the moon and the stars in the sky, it's time to go to bed and possibly get jiggy to make them more children. I mean, that's not described, but it's kind of inferred. So that's marriage in the Holy Bible. So why does Allah think, in his grace and wisdom and mercy, that women are going to want to have anything to do with a marriage that includes 3 other wives and a harem of random sex slaves and other prisoners? He doesn't consider the woman at all. And in fact, through his example of treating women so poorly and having no respect for them, giving a man 4 times as much, 4 times as many women as they're ever going to have men. Because remember, a woman can only ever have 1 husband at a time, and she's only allowed to be married twice. After she's divorced the second time, she is advised to go and rid the world of herself, dispose of herself in the proper terms, which the Sharia describes as suicide. That's Allah's respect for women and his example to the Muslim man, so we know. Muslim men are not born like that. They are not born with this completely corrupt view of morality and justice and love. Allah commands them to think that in here. His example is what they take on, and that's the reason they think it's okay to have umpteen wives and sex slaves and have no respect for them, treat them like property. In fact, he even describes them as plant pots for the seeding and says you don't even have to treat them well. Treat them as you will. Make sure they have lots of sons for you. The sons are the property of the father, just as much as the wives and the concubines are. Allah doesn't put forth any task like this. He doesn't say further your generations in the safety and peace of a walled garden. There's none of this niceties of you have free will. Remember, Allah's straight path must be adhered to, which he hasn't yet defined in here, but I can tell you, his straight path is his causes towards the final day of judgment, and his causes are the holy jihad, murdering the rest of the world who are not Muslims, who are going to get his wrath, and bringing the money back to the mosque to pay for further jihads in future. So in conclusion, we know Allah is not only needy, narcissistic, violent, spiteful, and by all accounts not a very nice chap. When he is telling his Muslims that he is God, he is pushing them away from the true grace and mercy of real God, who has given them an example of how to live their lives joyfully, how to be married and have a good relationship, in order that you can have children in a happy family, tend to the walled garden and have creative works over your life and be adored and admired by your family and have a happy existence. Unfortunately for Muslims, this isn't something they're ever going to experience unless they do what I'm going to do now and throw this awful, rancid piece of trash right over there and focus on the real word of God, the Holy Bible. So, a short episode today, but I feel like a good one. I know my women viewers will definitely appreciate that. So, in conclusion, men and women are born equal. God expressly makes them equal on purpose so that women get just as much of a say in proceedings as men. And when it says women are created as man's helper, the task is not created by the man. The man and the woman are equal helpers to God in the task of building the society out of happy families inside of the walled garden, tending to it to keep it nice for the children. Whereas we know Allah's version of this, Al-Nisa, is the indoctrination and the brainwashing of children through fear and through threats of violence in order that they can fight the jihad, do Allah's dirty work, and their only reward is virgins in the afterlife, after having been martyred in horrible pain in a war that they in all probability aren't going to enjoy. So, that's the end of this video. Hope you enjoyed that and you learned something. God bless you all, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye now. So, I think we can build up a fairly clear picture now that God is loving, creative, very affectionate on us who are his creation, in comparison to Allah, who is a rageful, violent, slave-driving demon. And that's the end of this video, so have a lovely day, God bless you all, and I'll see you in the next one.